to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll do a roll call. We have a new member, Glenn Rainier. Very nice of him to volunteer, appreciate it. But if you could just say your name, that'd be great.
Glenn Rainier.
Dave Jasinski, Commissioner.
Cindy Souza.
Drew Martin.
Marty Tar.
Bill Zolper, Town Manager.
All right, and then if ever we could just go ahead and do adoption of the agenda, that would be great.
Need a motion.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you.
Need all in, you gotta do it like
Yeah.
all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Haven't had one for a while. I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's not really that.
Just a thing.
Let's just, and then we'll do approval of the minutes. Anybody want to make a motion?
Were they sent out?
Yes.
Okay.
I can make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Anybody have any public comments? All right, keep it rolling. So the first agenda item, we're going to discuss and possibly vote to recommend to the council to move forward with the Reed Avenue Pump Station project through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The town has a $1 million grant from the U.S. government that would be, and then they would be responsible for 25% co-share of this proposed project.
Yeah, Peter Gorey from the U.S. Corps of Engineers was going to be on. He said he was on the train heading home. I don't see him up as of yet. So if it's okay with the chair and the committee, if we move to number 2, which is Beacon Engineering, which Bob Palmer is currently up and ready to go, that would be the Salisbury and the Dickinson Street proposed projects.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Guess Bob's up.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So thanks for allowing me to attend virtually. I figured this would be the most cost-effective solution for the presentation. Per the 2 resolutions, and Bill, I don't know if we want to talk about B and C together, or if we should talk about B first, then C.
I would like you to start with Dickinson Street if possible, and
Sure.
We could bring up the photos of that so we can let the committee know how, most of them do know how it floods down on Dickinson Street, but if Kate could bring up those photos, I'd appreciate it.
So we're discussing C first then?
Dickinson Street would be the one I want to discuss first.
Okay, all right. So we're on the same page.
Okay, brilliant. So you can see on the screen there are photos that have been captured of the flooding that occurs on Dickinson Street during extreme high tides. What you see in that photo is essentially bay water that backs up through the inlet that's on the far west end of the street. And so this proposal would be to install a tide gate in the pipe between this inlet and the outfall, the end of the pipe. The end of the pipe is actually underneath the steps that go up to the boardwalk. And what we're planning to do is basically it would be a precast concrete vault that would be large enough for personnel to actually go down into the vault to be able to clear debris from the tide gate on a periodic basis so that the gate can be maintained. And this is different from how the tide gates were installed many years ago on the Reed Avenue Street. If you outfalls, if you remember those valves, you could only get to one side of the gate. And if there was any sort of debris that became lodged against the gate from the bay side, it was nearly impossible to get to those blockages. In our proposal, we essentially would have access to both sides of the tide gate through this vault. And we've put a preliminary cost estimate together of approximately between 61,500 and 71,500 for engineering and construction to install this vault.
So Chair, the plan would be, if it's recommended by this committee and it goes on to the commissioners, is we would put it out for bids. We'd get the 3 bids in. Talking to Beacon Engineering, they've gone a little high on these bids. That's why it's between 61 and 71. And then once we get the bids back in, I would also apply for a CTF funding because it's a state road. It's not a town road. And like we did on Jersey Street, we got 53,000 for that project. Dickinson Street on the ocean side, we got another 50,000 for that project. I would apply for some of that money to help pay for this. It's not guaranteed. So we can't just say, oh yeah, we're gonna get $25,000 or $50,000 for any of these projects. But I will put in for each one of them separately through CTF funding, but I can't do that until it goes out. I get 3 bids in. I go through with Beacon Engineering, we look and see which one's the most cost effective with the best work, and then I'll take that amount. So let's say it's 53,000 or 55,000, then I'll take that and I'll send that into CTF along with the other 2 bids, explain to them why I want this bid, and then I'll ask them for that funding. But it's not guaranteed I'll get all of it. It's not guaranteed I'll get any of it, but at least we'll try.
So I have a question about that. So it's a state road. If we're continually having this flooding problem on a state road, and I'm sure you have addressed that with them, what do they say about fixing the problem?
So they say stormwater is the town's problem. Roads are their problems, stormwater is our problem.
Okay.
So what I want to tell them is, we want to fix the stormwater that would fix your road from flooding like in the pictures. So how about letting us have some CTF funding?
I see.
That's right.
So I know you kind of explained how these gates are different, being able to access both sides. My big question is, we've been going around the Tide Gate merry-go-round for a long time. And we've constantly been getting a different recommendation, do it this way this time. And we've had temporary success. You guys have kind of been down there and deal with it more than I deal with it because I'm all the way up at the north end. But we've had some temporary success with some approaches, but we've never had anything that long-term has been successful, on a block. So what I want to understand from Beacon is where are you pegging our likelihood of success as these really solving the problem on Dickinson?
Sure. So part of the success is associated with being able to effectively maintain the inlet or the tide gate, and so that's the purpose for the vault, rather than putting the tide gate at the very end of the pipe underneath of the steps. We're putting it in a location that can be more accessible. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're planning to use tried and true. I'm going back and forth between flap valves and inline inline tide flex type valves. Both will be suitable for this application, but we haven't gotten into the final engineering for the selection of which of the 2 technologies we would like to deploy. But essentially, our opinion is it's a maintenance matter that really determines the success of the solution.
I realize we're kind of going down the pump station path on Reed Avenue, but I guess what I'm kind of wondering is, why didn't we ever try this approach on Reed?
So there's a distinct difference between what's happening on Dickinson Street and Reed Street. Reed Street has a lot more water flowing into it. It's got McKinley Street on the ocean side, Reed Street on the ocean side, McKinley Street Bayside, Reed Street also. There's a number of different storm drains on Reed Street. I think there's as many as 4 on Reed Street. Dickinson Street, we're capturing the water basically just there on Dickinson Street, and it's flooding from coming up to that one storm drain at the circle there by the volleyball net.
Okay.
Whereas on the other streets, we have the 4. And then I think the big difference is that we have determined that a pump station does work. We know the one on Bayard Avenue works. It captures 7 blocks of water that used to flood down there by Bay Resort and Bellevue Avenue. We know pump stations work. I just don't think Dickinson Street is a place for a pump station, whereas Reed Street is definitely a place for a small pump station. And then I also think on Van Dyke Street is another spot for a small type of pump station. Just Dickinson Street, I don't think we need to spend the money for a pump station there. I'm hoping that installing a less costly hole that you'll be able to lift up a panel, get down inside. A person will be able to actually go down inside and clean on either side of this valve. I'm hoping that's the most cost-effective way to fix this on Dickinson Street compared to Reed, Van Dyke, and Baird Avenue.
Bob, do you have a diagram of the chamber?
I don't. I haven't prepared one yet. Yeah,
No,
sir.
okay, I was curious, because I think we all know what the Reed one, the flaps look like. We've seen those year after year, but,
So part of my problem is to spend money to get him to do the work.
yeah.
I have to come through the committee. So for him to design this, if it costs, I don't know, $10,000, and I don't know what it's gonna cost. I have to come to you to ask for that, and then he designs it, right? Because what if you deny it, and he's already designed it, and he's spent like, I don't know how many hours doing it. I mean, Bob, am I missing something?
No, you're right on. We originally talked about possibly, well, we talked about a number of different ways of
Right.
contracting the work, and we all agreed that it was the best solution for the town to come to the infrastructure committee for not only the design and the construction, because we have enough information and enough historical knowledge to have a good feeling about the cost or the value of the work before we actually put it out to bid. And, I'd also like to say that the reason why we have put a $70,000 price tag on what should be a $30,000 to $40,000 installation is because the main water feed and fire service for the and I'm not sure if it's just for the
Lighthouse.
the lighthouse or if it's for the entire Hyatt, but there's a main water service that runs very close to this inlet, and we don't know exactly where that service is located. And part of the design process will be to figure that out. So we're essentially planning for the worst, because the last thing we want to do is get down the road with design and find that there's a water main in the way that has to be relocated.
I have a logistical question about this. So the vault will be somewhere where? I guess the first question is, where would it potentially be located? The cover of it, is it going to be a grate? And if it is a grate, because that's such a heavy pedestrian area, how do you keep the safety factor of it?
Sure. So we've talked about a couple of different solutions. The popular solution would be to integrate the top of this vault with the existing sidewalk. So we would remove sections of the sidewalk to install the vault, and the hatch, the access into the vault would be, it will be an aluminum hatch that would be ADA compliant, so that from an accessibility perspective, we wouldn't be affecting the accessible route, and also it would blend in with the pedestrian nature and the beach nature of the area. Another solution. Yeah,
I understand what you were saying, Cindy, because when you look at those steps there,
Yeah.
are we talking about a big concrete chamber right next to the steps, right at that beach where people are playing volleyball? Or how far out is it gonna be? It's gotta be fairly far out, because the tide goes out pretty far. So, I think that's
And
an area.
people are imbibing there, so just want to make
Yeah.
sure they're safe as they're walking in either bare feet or flip-flops, yeah.
Sure thing. Good questions. So the again, the intent would be to install this vault landward of the outlet on the pipe, as close to the inlet as is reasonably possible. The intent, like I said, would be to incorporate the top of the vault into the pedestrian way into the sidewalk. Another solution that Bill and Scott and I have discussed is to put the vault essentially in the beach, but bury the vault so that it isn't impacted by, or it doesn't impact the use of the beach, the volleyball court, things of that nature. The concern that I have about that sort of a solution is I feel like we may be trading, one piece of maintenance for another piece of maintenance by having to excavate this vault every single time you need to get into it. And, then do you revert to, well, I only go into the vault when I've got a flood or there's something not working properly. So, it really feels like this thing ought to be exposed, and the most suitable location, and I feel like the safest location, would be part of the sidewalk. So, but not down by the steps.
Do you have any comments? Because you're gonna be the one doing this. Okay.
Anybody else have any comments on this particular project?
So the only other thing I would say, and Commissioner Jazinski asked earlier today some questions and I answered them. So we currently have $930,000 in our infrastructure budget, $930,000. We average between $120,000 and $135,000 a year of revenue coming in. So it's 20% of our building permits that come in. So if building permits stay like this, it could be 120 a year. If it drops, it could go down to 70 a year. If building goes up, it could be up to 135 a year. So just kind of keep that in mind as we spend money. How you may want to think, well, how fast are we going to get some of that back? We've done very well in CTF funding with Representative Schwarzkopf when he was there, and with Senator Huxtable, who is still there.
And thank you for all your hard work on that.
Yeah.
I know you're a big part of that. And I really
Yeah, and we've done very well getting CTF funding probably over the last 4 years. We've probably got close to $500,000 in CTF funding for street projects. The last one was on Jersey Street for $53,000 to put those storm drains in up there. We will be applying for that, but I can't tell you we're going to be as successful as we have in the past. I have met with Representative Claire Hall. She and I have sat down. She knows that I do have projects that I'll be putting in for, and she just, gave me the impression that you put in for them, and she's got other matters, and she'll see what she can provide for. She didn't say no, she didn't say yes. She just said they'd evaluate them, and the same with Senator Huxtable. So we will be putting in for that. So there will be some funding there. I think this is a problem we need to address, like Reed Street, like Van Dyke Street, those end of the streets on the bay. That's where our flooding currently is, and it affects the roads, so we should be able to get CTF funding. It affects the businesses on those streets, and it affects the folks that live on Reed and Van Dyke Street especially. So I know $71,000 is a lot of money for this project with this hatch that's going to go down into a vault, but I think Beacon did the best thing by kind of overdoing it in case we do have to get in around this main water line that runs to the lighthouse. We may not, but if we have to, that's why it's so much.
So these two projects, BC, basically, you see the letters.
Yeah.
Which would be a bigger priority?
So Dickinson Street's a bigger priority.
It is.
Salisbury Street, we need to do it. It floods on that end of the street, but only during rainstorms, and then the water sits for 2 or 3 days and it just floods that end. But Dickinson Street's the real problem out of those two. That's the priority out of those two.
Gotcha.
More of a curious nature, is there a way to design the roads on that bayside so that they are more porous, that isn't the word that I'm looking for, but as opposed to concrete or asphalting the whole thing, are there ways to make the roads more porous?
So there's pervious type of
Pervious, that's
material.
the word I was thinking of.
We put that down on Dagsworthy Street on the Bayside where it used to be, saying we used to have a lot of, we used to have the Sip and Shop down there and some other things. But they're state roads, so it's up to the state if they want to spend the money to do that.
Got it.
Most of the streets in Dewey Beach are owned by the state.
I do have a question.
You got it.
Scott Sheffield, Maintenance Supervisor. Hey, Bob. Instead of spending $61,000 to $71,000 and it might work and it might not. I know we talked about it a little bit before. What about a $2,000 duck bill as just a trial? Maybe it'll work.
So I know we tried duck bills down on the end of the Reed Street and it didn't, I mean, you were here when they were on, I wasn't, but
It's hard to say if they ever really worked properly. I mean, they were jammed and you
they
just
gotta be
don't-
kept clean,
Yeah,
clear
you
of
just-
sand.
But you're only talking one pipe.
Yeah,
Do one drainage, one pipe.
Was that the one where Phil was testing the water?
yes.
Yeah,
That was on Reed Street.
yeah, but he was testing the water to ascertain whether it was rainwater or seawater or whatever.
Yes.
Didn't he come to a conclusion that the old duck bills were working, or did he came to a conclusion one way or the other, I just can't remember what it was.
Well, I think we might be talking about two different things. I think early on there was a duck
They,
bill, and then
as far
these
as I know,
flaps were out.
there was never a duck bill on Reed Street.
There was never, okay.
A duck bill's a big hunk of rubber and it's folded over. And then when the water gets behind it, it opens up.
No, they were there, there's pictures of it from.
Yeah, there were two.
Yeah, from the 2016 or 2014 engineering of our storm drains. They work very well if the pipe can be up out of the water. But what happens on Dickinson Street, that pump is, that stormwater pipe is running out underneath the boardwalk. And it is actually down in the sand somewhat. So I think it would be hard for us to do maintenance on a duck bill.
It's just a thought.
Oh, that was a great thought.
Inexpensive.
Yeah, that's all I got. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
And there's no way to excavate that and put riprap around it.
There's already riprap there, it's
Okay.
old, when the pipe was put in, I don't know how many years ago. When you look at underneath the boardwalk down there, when you go up the steps and you look underneath, there's stone there.
Yeah,
And almost all that stone is covered, some of it's still exposed, but you don't even see the pipe.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody's a little bit scared of the flaps.
Right.
Yes, we spent a lot of money on flaps.
And are we creating another Reed Street that we're going to have to continue to come back and fix? That's the
Well,
only.
right now, we know it's broken, right? And we're talking to an engineer,
Yeah.
and we're trying to figure out the best solution. We've done that on Reed Street, as Commissioner Jazinski said, at least 3 different times, or 2 different times since I've been here, and we're finally going with a pump station that's gonna be maybe up to $1.3 million to put in. We don't have the money, and I don't think Dickinson Street needs a pump station. I just don't think it does. Van Dyke, yeah, it's gonna need one. Reed Street needs one. But I'm not sure Dickinson Street needs a pump station. I don't know what Bob thinks, but.
I would agree with Bill, because at the end of the day, when you think about the pump station, is the purpose of the pump station to prevent flooding, or is it the purpose to remove the water from the street after the storm has subsided? Because the committee is right in that by putting in a pump station, now suddenly you've blocked the bay from backing up through this inlet. But then if you then now suddenly you're putting pumps in that have to perform during a certain storm event to keep the street from flooding. And that's where the cost gets into, that's where you get into the cost of building a lift station that performs the same function as an inlet when the tide goes out. So by installing some sort of a tide gate, that is a much lower cost, much less maintenance intensive solution. I think there are issues with how some of the work was done on Reed Street in prior years, but I'm reserving comment on the hows and the whys simply because I wasn't present, wasn't part of the decision-making process. And, I'm armchair quarterbacking after surgery was done and redone.
All right, well, I think unless somebody has any other questions about it, I don't know if someone would like to make a motion, possibly vote to recommend to the council for a figure of 71.5 for funding for a flood mitigation project, which would involve this flap at the end of Dickinson Avenue. Also, along with that, we are going to hope that we will get some funding from the state, but we don't know
Right.
that for a fact.
I'll apply for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll leave that if somebody wants to make that motion. If we want to continue to discuss it, if we don't want to recommend.
I can make a motion and then it can go on to the commissioners and they can decide whether we've recommended properly.
Is this the best solution, Bob? Are there other options?
Yes. There are other more costly options, and you're referencing a flat. I haven't decided whether an upturned flat valve, similar to what you have on Reed Street, but positioned differently so that it closes properly, or whether some sort of an inline tide flex valve. Essentially, it's a duckbill valve similar to what Scott was referencing, but rather than being out and exposed, it's partially incised into the pipe to provide for personnel access for cleaning. But it wouldn't be completely hidden the way the valves were at Reed Street.
Well, if you're going to make a motion, you go ahead and you somewhat have to make a detailed motion of exactly what, and then someone would need to second that.
Okay.
So so the dollar figure was 71.5.
Right.
Up to.
Yeah.
And it's for the 71.5 for the, adding basically a valve system into Dickinson Street.
Into the stormwater pipe.
Stormwater pipe.
Okay.
So you're making a motion to recommend that to the town
I
council?
make a motion that we recommend the 71.5 for the valve for Dickinson Street to try to rectify our flooding issue there.
Anybody want to second that?
Authorize up to
Up to
71.5. Up to
71.5.
71.5.
Waiting for one of you two to second that or no?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Couldn't even say it.
Marty did say aye.
Silently. I don't know what else we can do.
You've got to go on the expert recommendation of an engineer. I mean, I don't know what else you
And
can
we've been
say.
doing that, and, I guess, I don't know how, we've got to raise the land. It's all we can do. And
Because
then,
the thing that he talked about comparing it to Reed is more intense with taking away your sidewalk and all that, right? And more money.
So we've tried several different things on Reed Street. It hasn't worked. And honestly, if we didn't get the grant for $1 million, and we're going to talk about that next, I'm not sure what we'd be doing on Reed Street. But with the grant of $1 million, we hope, with the recommendation here and the commissioners, that we could put a pump station in there. Not quite as big as Bayard Avenue, but a pump station.
and the big difference is that Reed Street is a neighborhood. There are homes there, people live there full-time, and Dickinson is not. It's a business street.
It is. It's a business with a hotel that we
It
get
is a
revenue
hotel.
from, and
True,
the rooms are rented out.
true.
So we do get some revenue from that, from those establishments.
We just have to keep in mind that Reed has to be a priority for pump station because it's been struggling much longer, and it is a neighborhood. And I don't want us to ever forget that.
So are we gonna discuss, B next,
It-
Bob, or?
Is, so B is Salisbury Street, and for what I think I'm hearing from the committee at this time, does the committee think that that's something that they don't want to spend the money? Do you want to discuss it?
We'd like to
Want
discuss
Bob and
it.
I to at least describe why?
Yes, we'd like to discuss it at least, that's for
Okay.
sure.
So Kate, if you could bring up the pictures there on Salisbury Street. So this continues to happen every time it rains, but it sits like this for probably a day and a half to 2 days. There is a storm drain that runs underneath that. When I say that, there's a storm drain pipe that runs from Route 1, about a quarter way down, there's actually a storm drain, but there's no storm drain until you get to the corner. My problem is trying to get that water to the storm drain in the corner is that I would have to make a gully anywhere from starting at about dropping almost 8 inches to 10 inches from that to get it to that storm drain and to go into that house's property. What Bob and I are looking at, and Bob can go into it a little more detail, is put a storm drain just to the north side of that Jeep where the water sits. It'd be a storm drain, it would run right into the pipe underneath it.
So that's funny, the pump's right across the street from it, right? The Bayard pump is right
So the
across.
Bayard, that's on Salisbury Street, so you still have New Orleans, and then the Bayard Avenue is, it's down in that corner.
This
But I
is,
can't get that water down into that corner.
this is purely a rainwater issue.
This is.
This-
It's nothing to do with the
Yes.
bed.
That's
So-
right.
So I'm wondering, is you had some success up in the north end with those just grates?
So those would be much more expensive than what we're trying to put in. That was $130,000.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a pipe underneath. Go down into that pipe, have a storm drain go into it. And the reason, and Bob can tell you, went a little higher, there's a water and a sewer line that runs somewhere along that street that we may or may not have to do some work on.
That's right. So if Kate could pull up the picture with the Jeep on the right-hand side of the photo.
It's up.
Oops. Yeah, sorry. The next one where we're looking at the back of the Jeep.
Bob, you're muted.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, I phased out for a second. I lost connection. So there's actually two solutions. One is significantly more expensive than the other. The more cost-effective solution would be to simply cut in a catch basin in front of where that Jeep is and off of the edge of pavement. So there wouldn't be any pavement restoration. There would be select grading in that yard to make sure that the inlet is at the lowest point of that in that yard area. But as Bill said, there's a water line that runs along the north side of the street, and there's a sewer line that runs along the south side of the street, and there are water and sewer services that run to the house that's green right behind the brown house. So that's the reason why again, we have overshot on what we really think it's going to cost, simply because we want to make sure that we have sufficient funds to mitigate water and sewer service relocations potentially. The more expensive solution, which may not impact those utilities, would be to one, regrade the streets so that the runoff heads toward, there's a swale screen left. It's an overgrown swale. We could potentially regrade the street to force the water in that direction, or we could install a crossroad culvert. Regardless of those two solutions, they would be subject to the function of that swale, which, as you can see in this picture, between the stop sign and the edge of the photo, the swale in this particular event was flooded. So if we had a positive connection to the storm drain system in front of that Jeep, then at least the south side of the street would essentially be free draining. And that's the reason for that particular recommendation.
And what's the cost on this project?
We've estimated the total cost to be between 42.6 and 47.6. And again, that includes a healthy contingency for relocating either the sewer service or the water service for the house that's screen right but not visible in the photo.
So, and we're saying this is strictly a rain event? that's
It is.
causing-
Has
And how
nothing to
long
do
is,
with the bed.
and how long does the water sit?
2 days.
And not only is the standing water a nuisance to the traveling public, but with water laying on the side of the road the way it does for prolonged periods, that has a tendency to shorten the lifespan of the road. And even though Salisbury Street is a state maintained road, they have paving cycles, and if the road fails prematurely, I don't know, DelDOT's appetite for fixing the road if it doesn't live out, if it doesn't live beyond the repaving cycle.
When is it supposed to be repaved next? What's the schedule?
So, for the last 2 years, DelDOT has told us they were gonna repave. It is in this year's budget. I checked with DelDOT, it would be in October.
So they would be repaving Salisbury? Okay. So they could regrade it at their cost?
We could ask them to do that. That would push the water into either one of those yards, and then I would get probably the owners of those properties calling me.
What is the impact to the owners today? I mean, it looks like it's right on the corner, so they've got frontage on 2 different streets. What's the impact to them?
So that house on the corner of Salisbury and Barrett on the southwest side, that you cannot see from that picture, if Kate goes to the other one from the front of the Jeep, it's a brand new home. That water used to go into their yard and up around their crawl space, and they had like a little garage in the back. One of the reasons they went to the Board of Adjustment, they got the approval to build this house this way, was because of the water that they used to get on their lot. And they built that, and of course with our town code, they built the house and they made the grade away from the house. So the water that used to run about where that palm tree is and those blue chairs now doesn't go in their yard, it runs out into the road right there.
Okay, so you're telling me that the way they graded the yard is a significant part of this problem?
The way when they built their house and the way the grade is, it pushes the water out into the road, yes. Yeah. When it used to be, like I said, where those blue chairs are in that palm tree, it used to flood right up underneath their house.
So it doesn't go into the crawl space?
Yeah, so if the state grades that to go towards pump, this is the pump side, that will trap the water on their property, that they're gonna complain about that to you.
Yeah, so there's just, if Kate could bring that picture back up, there's a storm drain behind that white Jeep, back almost in their front yard. If you go down there and look at it, there's a storm drain. In fact, I think there's 2.
There's 2.
The problem is getting the water across their property through the right-of-way to those storm drains. We would have to put a gully in, a cement gully across their, it would look like it was going across their yard. It would probably be in the town right-of-way. This is a project that I think we're gonna need to do. If we don't have the funding right now, we don't, but it's something that always happens on that street. It's a very busy street because of Starboard's on that street. There's a lot of business on that street. There's a lot of rentals on that street. And we just get a lot of people, that are parking in that big, large puddle, and walking through the street, when it's covered with water. So.
The concrete swale, there is another concrete swale along Bayard.
So they're down on New Orleans Street. I had those put in, going from the street to the storm drains. Here, that won't work because the water doesn't go far enough down the street for me to put a swale in like that. I'd have to put that swale in starting just where that first post is, between the first and second post, and try to get it to drain down.
Is it possible to push this off and then speak with the state about the grading?
It's possible, because if they do come through in October and repave it, it may do something different with the water. It may push it up into the folks' yard again. I mean, I'm okay if we wait on this. Dickinson Street is a priority when it comes to the flooding,
Yeah, maybe they would have
out of
some,
those two.
maybe they would have some ideas looking at the project when they're redoing it to alleviate that. I don't know.
They're gonna mill it, and they're just gonna repave it. I can ask them to raise it. They may or may not.
Okay.
Is it the photo, or is it, or this looks to be the lowest lying area? from
Yeah, so like
there?
on Jersey
It
Street.
is.
Yeah, like on Jersey Street, when you do the contour lines, that is like the lowest part of the street. Now, when they come through and repave it, and they raise that water is gonna go, in different directions off that. So maybe we should wait until they repave it.
I would just say that this seems to be, as you walk the neighborhoods, the same thing happens on my street, in my block. I mean, it sits there after a rain because there are a couple of houses that sit at a very low grade. I'm not inclined to do anything at this point.
I mean, even our, Hayden Road does the same thing. It rains heavily and it all runs to the side, to our side, and it takes a few days for it to eventually go down.
Yeah.
I would hate for us to do this and then have the state come in and pave and we have to redo it.
Yeah, that's a definite, I think that we need to wait until that's done.
Right.
You know, that makes sense.
This could be done next year.
Yeah, okay. So we want to go ahead and move forward and discuss A then.
Can we go back to A?
Yeah.
Yours last. Is Peter available?
Yeah, it's on.
So,
Yeah, I'm here, Bill.
Thanks, Bob.
My pleasure.
thanks, Bob. So on the next project, and we all know the history of Reed Street, we've talked about it today. We applied through a grant through Senator Coon's office. It got approved through Senator Coon's office for $1 million, and the money got transferred, or the funding is available through the Army Corps. If the total project is $1.3 million, let's say, the town is responsible for about $330,000 of that 1.3.
Okay.
And then Peter can talk about it a little more, about the status of the project, and a timeline, and why the town is responsible for that $300,000.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Bill. Sorry, I apologize. I was getting home. Train was taking me a little bit longer. So thank you for accommodating that. So yeah, I'm not sure how much of the history has come up, but the letter report that was the initial stage of this project has been approved. All that means is that we are moving ahead with the next phase, which is the partnering agreement between Dewey, the town of Dewey, and the Army Corps of Engineers. And as part of that, we're doing what is called an integral determination report. So that basically identifies what activities that Dewey Beach wants to do to be considered and will work as in-kind credits. So that's basically in-kind contributions to that 25% of the total project cost that would be Dewey Beach would be responsible for. So what that all means is that of the $330,000, if you guys do $20,000 or $50,000 worth of engineering support, permitting assistance, things like that, that would basically mean that you would only need to spend $280,000, okay, compared to for cash. And that's all that means, okay? So as we're moving forward, once we get this design agreement in place, we get that signed, then we start doing the design process. So, and as part of the letter report, there was an estimate in there for what we thought the project design cost would be, then construction cost. The construction cost came up, that was used as a very rough estimate. I took the information that Bill had provided with the Bayard Avenue pump station and basically did a very rough drainage area, size of the pumps, calculated and figure out what the drainage area for the Reed Avenue would be, and sort of reduced the cost of the initial project to, to accommodate that smaller pump station, and then escalated it to 2025 costs. So there we came up with approximately, I think the total project cost, what did I have in here? We had 150 design and then like approximately 890,000 for construction costs. So it doesn't come out, it comes out to approximately $1 million. I know Bill had asked me to give an explanation of how we come up with that. So for the, excuse me. So given that the project is 150, there was $100 million that was, I'm trying to get unauthorized, obligated or appropriated for this project for Dewey Beach. Being that it's a 75%, 25% cost share, 75% federal, that breaks down into basically $1 million federal and $333 non-fed, which gives us to a rough total of $1.3 million. And it's a very simple math that we come up with. So, and I was telling Bill, it doesn't mean Dewey needs to provide $330,000. That's what it could be, because we can't spend any more money than what is cost shared. So if we get to $333,000, we can spend all of the federal money. And it's always a proportion to whatever we're doing. So at this point, we don't have an actual cost estimate. That would happen once we start the design phase. Part of the design will be putting together the plans and specs, going through any NEPA documentation that we need to do to inspect, any HTRW. So I think what else? The permitting that would be required for the project. And that's roughly about it for that part of the project. All that will come out, like actual design cost, construction cost will be generated through as part of the design. Any questions?
So if I could just comment that the Bayard Avenue station is probably double the size that this one's going to be when it comes to size of the pumps. That project was $1 million roughly 12, 13 years ago. The town took out a loan to pay for that. My first year I was here, the loan just got paid off when I got here 4 years ago. This project, the Army Corps is saying could be up to 1.3 million. The town, if it is that much, is responsible for $333,033. So we're essentially, if those numbers are correct and they're true, we're going to have a pump station, not quite as big as the one in Bayard Avenue, but a pump station that the town's going to have to purchase for $330,000, which is a lot of money out of our $930,000 budget we currently have with infrastructure. But correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, we won't have to pay the 330 all during one fiscal year. It may be $100,000 this year, maybe $100,000 the following year, maybe $150,000 the following year. In the last year, maybe $50,000. It's going to be kind of spread out. So we're not going to have to fund 330 out of that 930 all at one time.
That's good news.
So
Yeah, Bill, that's correct. The initial slug of money that's going to have to come in will be when we figure out what we're doing for the design. Okay. And we come up with a cost estimate with our AE on what that's going to cost. Because as this is a 25% cost share, I have that $1 million on the books, but I can't spend that money for the design until we get your share, the non-Fed's share, to move forward with the design effort. So I think I had emailed you, say 150 or 100,000 for the initial, and then when construction comes around, we would need to have that money up, in hand at that point to award it to a contractor and do the construction. So that's how it's going to get broken up.
So I want to understand a little bit more about the sequence of funds. So the design is $190,000, you said, right?
Right now, we have an estimate of 150,000.
So the design is 150. So our share of the design is 25% of that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so at the conclusion of spending $150,000 total, we will have I don't know if it'll be fully fixed, but we'll have the bid and know how much the project costs at that point.
Correct.
Is that, yeah?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, many times we've talked about Reed Avenue, and I don't know how many times people have said it is the lowest point in town, and streets all are draining, or areas are all draining towards Reed. Do we know that, I know you say the pump doesn't have to be as big as Bayard. Will this pump or area be able to be upgraded without a lot of expense? I mean, a larger pump added, the infrastructure will all be there if it isn't able to handle the volume of water that's coming into Reed?
So Beacon Engineering did a rough estimate of the amount of water that would be in the 4.5 block area of McKinley Street and Reed Street. And then they'll provide that information to the Army Corps. The Army Corps will look at it and verify that that's the right information with the amount of water that would come in. And remember, this would be rainwater. This isn't bay water,
I got
because
it.
like on Bayard Avenue, that's not bay water they're pumping out, it's rainwater they're pumping into the bay. And if the berm is breached by the bay, the pumps shut off, because if not, they'll burn out. Then once the water goes back below the berm, then the pumps kick back on. So it'll have to be verified by the Army Corps, and there'll be a primary pump and a backup pump. Like on Bayard Avenue, they're just not gonna be as big. We're pulling 7 blocks on Bayard Avenue of water, 7 blocks.
Okay,
From it's basically Houston or St. Louis Street, all the way down to the end of Bayard Avenue. All that water goes all the way down. Whereas over here on Reed Street, it's less than half of that.
how about this work you're getting ready to do, this temporary work, where you're running some electricity, you're running the conduit? I assume that that's an expense that would go towards this whole project.
So it's not approved by the Army Corps, so I won't be able to take that. Right now, we're estimating it was $5,000, a little less than $5,000. DP&L is going to do most of the heavy lift on that. They're going to run it from a power pole on Reed Street over behind Monocle's park there. We want to get the power run over there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So we can temporarily put some small pumps in there, close off 2 of those pipes, and start pumping the water out as early as this September when you start having full moons, and we'll see with those 2 small pumps. But that's not a permanent solution.
I get that.
I want to get the power run over there so we can get
I'm
that
just like,
run.
for instance, you're talking about running power, will that be, when you're doing that, that's not gonna be enough for this pump station, that's gonna have to be redone?
So that's something else the Army Corps and Beacon are working at, because originally we thought 200 amps. 200 amps is what runs the Bayard Street station, correct, Scott? 200 amps. Beacon looked at it and goes, we should probably go with something higher than 200 amps just in case. And I was, well, we have 200 amps running the Bayard Street station. We should be able, but you never know. These are newer pumps. They're going to be more efficient according to the Army Corps and according to Beacon, but you never know. So we're looking at anywhere between 200 and 400 amps running over the.
Now, these temporary pumps, you're gonna shut off all 3 inlets and then pump the water over the berm, or you're gonna try to pump the water out?
So, and Scott can provide some more information. We're gonna drop 2 pumps down inside
Yeah.
that box. We're gonna shut completely off 2 of those pipes out of the 3. We're gonna leave 1 open, because if the pumps end up not working or keeping up and the tide goes out, we want water to be able to run out on its own through gravity, through 1 of those pipes, right? So we don't wanna cut off all 3, but when there's a lot of water that comes in, we're gonna see what happens when we run 2 small pumps, and it'll go up. The pipe will go It'll be over the dune, but you will not see it. It'll be a 4-inch pipe, 3-inch pipe, PVC, that we'll put into the dune, and we'll run it right next to the pipes that are going out. And we're not changing anything. The water that's at the end of the street
Yeah.
is the water that's going into the bay, whether we have a pump there or whether we just do it through gravity right now.
Well, that was what I was wondering, there is a pump, or a pipe that's going out over top of the berm to pump the water back out.
You won't
just
see
can't
it
pump the
though.
water out.
It'll be buried probably under 2 or 3 inches of sand.
I got it,
That's all temporary until we get this.
I understand.
I know Peter may say this project could be done in maybe 2 years. I'm thinking probably closer to 3.
That's possible. It all, yes.
Yeah. I just,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
we have steps that we have to go through. We have to, and going back to like, you guys are talking about putting the electric in. Unfortunately, nothing can be applied to the project until we get that design agreement executed between the town of Dewey and the Army Corps. So any work that's done before that is not eligible for in-kind credits.
But in the meantime, I don't want to wait 3 years
Right.
and have the end of your street being flooded for the next 3 years till this project's
I
finally
appreciate
done.
that.
And we're trying to come up with something that's cost effective. We got to run the power over there anyway. So we figure if we're going to run the power over there, we might as well plug some pumps in temporarily and see what happens.
And the water is going back into the bay. It's pumping it back in, from the street into the bay.
Just like if it was low tide, the water would go
Would
out
go.
the same way. We're just keeping the water from coming in, right? Because right now the water comes in and floods those 4 grates down the street. I mean, it floods them completely.
This $1 million grant is specific to the Reed Avenue project, right?
Just Reed,
Yeah,
can't use
so-
for anything else.
Okay. Don't know when you're gonna get that again, so,
You can take it back, Henry.
No, we thought we may possibly lose the grant under a new administration, but that didn't happen, correct, Peter?
That's correct. That money is still in our hands, and there's no indication.
Hurry.
Probably should.
Yeah, we better hurry.
Yeah.
Let's make a motion to do it.
So are we making, if we want to move forward, are we making a motion then to fund 25% of $150,000 right now? for
No,
the
I'm asking
design?
you to fund 25% of the whole project up to
Okay.
1.3. If
Okay,
it's less than 1.3, it's 25% of that. It's going to be 25% of the design, 25% of the construction.
I gotcha.
But
Okay,
the money won't be spent until the design, all the money won't be spent until the design is finished, and we know we can get the project done in the amount.
And agreed to by the Corps of Engineers.
Yeah.
The agreement.
They're leaving.
okay, so we're voting that we're gonna make a recommendation to the commissioners that they utilize possibly $330,000 out of the infrastructure fund.
Over the next maybe 1 to 2,
Yeah, okay.
hopefully not 3 years, but
Yeah.
at least the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's a significant amount of money, but.
I don't know
Needed
how,
project, I don't know, I'm the
I don't
wrong
know how
person to
else you're
ask, but.
I don't know how much
I've
you're
been
going
waiting
to
for this
fix.
moment.
I know,
I'm
I-
already making a motion.
I want to make a motion, I'm not exactly sure how to say it. I move that we do this, but I know it has to be more formal than that, so.
Well, it's already written out.
All
so-
right, so,
Here, I've got the resolution.
the resolution is
You don't have to read the
the whole thing.
whole thing, but this is probably the most important part, I think, right there. And we can always help you with it.
Okay, I move that we
Recommend to the council.
recommend to the council to co-share, 25% co-share of this proposed project on Reed Avenue to install a pump station in conjunction, in partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers,
Who's contributing?
who is contributing $1 million in grant for this project.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, great.
Thank you, and thank you,
No,
Senator.
thank you, Bill.
Well,
Thanks for everything
Senator
you did on
Coons
that.
for
Well,
working this through.
And, this is so hard to understand and we're so gun shy from it. It's just hard to, and we've been working on it forever. Thanks for doing it.
will they make the berm any higher?
So their engineers are gonna come down and look at it, and I suppose they will. There's already HESCOs in the berm. They may have to remove part of them, or they may increase it. Would you
Yeah,
agree,
that's
Pete?
possible. I'm not sure what the design, what the ultimate design is going to look like at the end. They're going to try and keep the area looking as it is, with minimal, changes to it. So that'll all be once the designers get involved with that. So
Yeah, that would be good because as we all know, moving forward, it's only going to get higher. So,
Right.
And if the berm's not high enough, then we're just pumping water and it's
Right.
going nowhere. So,
yeah, I mean, that's one of our stipulations when we do our projects now is to account for sea level rise, to accommodate that, to make sure that we're not designing something that's going to be inadequate in 2-3 years. So, but that will be looked at. You guys, I mean, the town of Dewey will also have like an opportunity to provide comments to the design to make sure your needs are being met, that you guys are happy with it. This whole project, and I'm not sure if I explained it, is we're assisting you guys, like the different towns, different communities, to do these infrastructure projects. So it's your design, whatever the project is, you guys have come up with something that you want. We're here to assist you in implementing that, to get the design done and then do the construction.
Thank you.
thanks.
Mm-hmm.
You want to move on to D?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
All
Peter.
right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Chair, the next project is down on Van Dyke Street, JMT along with Denrec. JMT drafted a grant. I did not draft a grant. I've worked with them, but Chris's team actually drafted the grant, and we got a $31,000 grant for a study of the amount of water going down Van Dyke Street through the two pipes that run through the beach and stick up a little bit in the beach down there. My goals, and I've talked to, I think the committee were, number one, move the water off the street, mitigate the flooding. Number two, move the pipes so they're no longer a safety hazard. And number three, help with the type of water that's running out of the bay. So anytime, like on Reed Street and on Bayard Avenue, you have a pump station, the water dumps into a big vault at the bottom. And if there's cups or bottle caps or plastic, anything, it goes into that vault and it does not go into the bay because the pumps have screens around them. And then somebody like Scott performs maintenance on it every so often. He's got this big net and he scoops everything out of the bottom. So there's three things we're really trying to do. But before we could actually move forward on any project like that, we asked JMT to do a study on the amount of water, just like on Reed Street and on Bayard Avenue. What type of pump station and what would be the best option to move those pipes. And that's what Chris is here today to kind of talk to you about. We've already got approval. You already approved this project. I just wanted to update you on the project.
Great, thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, sure. Kate, is that mic on
Yes.
at the table? Hey, could you bring up the pictures of the flooding? That's looking down towards the gazebo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, and I look forward to giving everybody an update. I have a short presentation. It's probably going to take 5-10 minutes to get through, but if you have questions, please interrupt me, chime in. I feel like today's theme has been stormwater, so I went with another stormwater project. A couple of these things Bill has mentioned. We'll go through the project goals. This is partially funded from a stormwater matching planning grant. That's through DENREC. So they funded some of the work that we're doing, and the town is funding another part of it. So I'll get through that with you. I'll go through each project task, kind of where we're at, to give you an update on those. There should be two more that pop up there. One is our schedule. We started back in, I believe, March of this year on the project, and we'll finish up by, say, October, November, and then we'll come back and do another presentation to everyone and all alternatives, our options, and our full concept plan. So like I said, today is just the update, kind of where we're at, but by the end of the year, we'll be done, actually well before that, we'll be done with the project. So goals, again, Bill mentioned these earlier. This is really water quantity control through Van Dyke in that area. That's probably the primary goal. Secondary goal is safety with the outfall pipes, with the beach that I hear gets more and more use in traffic. It's a great feature that is there, but with the pipes going out, sometimes they're partially submerged, sometimes they're fully submerged. So there's concerns there to get rid of those pipes. And the last one is water quality, which is removal of any debris, trash, primarily that gets into the storm sewer system and then gets out to the bay. We can capture that in the pump station and not pump it into the bay and take it out. So those are the three main goals, kind of listed in order of importance.
One thing I want to compliment Bill, before I forget, last year and this year, what you've been doing with the guys picking up trash has made a huge difference. When you're walking down the sidewalks and you see all the grates and you don't see all the trash piled up on the grates anymore, that has been a great.
So that's part of Scott's team doing that. It's part of, on the weekends, folks that have an option to either pay a fine in front of the alderman or do community service. Sometimes we have 4 people, sometimes we have 7 people, and they have to do 20 hours of community service. We put them in the orange vest,
Yeah.
we give them a bucket, we give them gloves, we give them a claw, and they pick up garbage around
It's
town.
I always
huge.
thought those people were the state gulag. I didn't realize they were doing.
No, that's
I didn't know that was, I've
Yeah.
seen him on,
Well, anyway, I had to say that before I forgot about it. I mean, it's made a massive difference with the amount of trash that's on the streets. So I apologize, Chris, for interrupting you. You guys did a great thing Bill
I
has
said
put together.
thank you.
You're doing community service.
Yeah.
Good.
Cool.
So project location, hopefully everybody can see those colors all right, but the orange lines are the drainage boundaries, and we subdivided the larger drainage area into small drainage areas. We look at the land use and the cover, the slopes, and this is what we use to calculate the total flow that's eventually going to come out to the discharge location. It's a little over 21 acres, and it is highly impervious. Over 75% of it is some form of hard surface, whether that's a roof, a road, sidewalk, walkway, things like that.
So does everybody see where the Hyatt is? Everybody sees where the lighthouse is? Everybody sees where the gazebo is located?
Yeah, I want to be real specific. So under the 2 orange squares is Van Dyke, right, on the left.
So the 2 orange squares, the rectangular squares, that's the Hyatt.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Point,
Van Dyke's
can
on
you
the left.
point to it?
them out?
Sure, I'm
Yes.
sorry, did I jump that? So this is the Hyatt right through here,
Okay,
right? And then these are the 2 outfall pipes
Okay.
that discharge into the bay, and that's the town, I believe that's the town's parking lot.
The state owns it, but it's our parking lot, yes.
And you're telling me from the top orange line to the bottom orange line, all of that drainage is going just to Van Dyke?
Yes.
None of it's going to
Dickinson.
Dickinson?
That's why I was talking about the different needs.
Right.
For a pump at one place and a flat maybe at the other.
Yeah.
There's not as much water.
These lines are accurate within maybe 5-10 feet, but they're not drastically off. There is a Delta project that went through the Route 1. We looked at those maps. There's inlets, I believe, that are here and over here, and they all flow that way. We popped the inlets and the manholes for the storm sewer system to make sure that they were all conveyed the right way.
There's a lot of water, as you can see, that runs down to Van Dyke Street. And then everything that comes off the roof of the Hyatt, all that runs down into those pipes, all of it.
So we look at storm intervals, 1-year storm, 2-year storms, all the way up to 50-year storms. So depending upon the interval, the frequency, we've all experienced storms that come in and drop 2 inches in 25 minutes, it seems like, or sometimes we get the slow rain events that may drop a ½ inch over a day. But we look at different storm intervals, which are published, and that area sees anywhere from 500,000 gallons on the lower end storm to upwards of 3 on a higher, 50-year storm. So it does see quite a bit. There's 2 larger pipes through there, culverts that discharge out into the bay. So it's quite a lot of flow that's coming in.
You can see what they look like when there's sand in front of them. That water doesn't drain out until somebody actually takes a shovel. It shovels in front of it and then it rushes out like a river.
I just wanted to include these for visual on what the issue is, and Bill described it very well, that it can't get out because of the sand. It's very labor intensive to maintain these. You can go to the project tab. Thank you. So what are our main tasks? The first 2, the site survey and the hydraulic analysis, we've completed. So the survey work, like I mentioned, was when we started back in March. We surveyed the area, we delineated the basins, we have a good understanding of the flow that's coming to our point of analysis, which is the 2 outfall pipes. Right now, we're working with Bill on our concept design, and I'll go through one shortly. That includes where we'd like to put the pump station, the force main, and removal of those pipes. We've met with the Center for Inland Bays to talk about some water quality improvements. We also met with Sea Grant as well. They were part of our partners on the grant that we got through DENREC, so we got some input from them on what has worked well in the past, what hasn't worked well, what may not be the best interest of the town to try. There's a lot of green infrastructure improvements you can do. I heard pervious pavement earlier. One of the big concerns we have with things like pervious pavement is sediment getting into the pavement and clogging it. So in an area like this, with all the sand, it would be very labor intensive to keep that from clogging, and I would even say probably impossible to keep it from just clogging up. So we work with those entities, and now we're finishing our concept selection. Real quick on project cost, try to go through this in a clear way. So the tasks in blue are what is being funded 50% from DENREC through the grant. In the task, I believe it's task 2 is what the town is funding fully. When we started out the task development, when we started working with the Center for Inland Bays, we were hoping to get 3 concepts, both on water quantity and water quality. So quantity is how much flow we can send out to the bay, and quality is taking out all the nutrients that come with that to help the bay, to help the ecology of the bay. After meeting with them, I think it was beginning of June or end of May, we kind of concluded that the water quality improvements aren't going to be realistic. So we're going to lower the cost. We're going to come up with 1 concept now instead of 3. So I have 2 green arrows on the right. That's going to drive down the overall cost for the concept design and then the public input and selection. So probably on the order of, I'll say $12,000 to $15,000, $12,000 to $18,000. The town will realize the savings because of the concepts that just, we don't want to come up with something that we know is not feasible. We don't want to present something that we know is not going to work. Never want to be the first. As an engineer, you never want to be the first one to try something. I think there's a time and a place for that, but in this situation, that's not the case. We need a solution that we know is going to work. We know a pump station will work.
How close at the conclusion will you be on pricing for the overall project?
So we'll provide for a design price, we can get very, very accurate. As far as construction goes, we'll probably be we'll give you a range in that 10 to 20% of what we think it'll be. So our concept will take us far enough where we're going to size the pumps. And I'll go through that in a second, but we'll size the pumps. There's going to be a big concrete chamber. There's going to be an outfall pipe, and there will be some utility improvements, mostly electrical extension to get there. So we'll have a good handle on what those will be.
Roughly speaking, given that large, I can't remember how many acres you said, but given the large drainage area, how big is this compared to Reed Avenue?
I don't have the size on Reed Avenue. I think it's a smaller drainage area, but it has a higher, just from looking at the aerial, small drainage area, but higher impervious percentage, so the flows could be similar. I'd have to look at the Reed Avenue drawings. And
I was just kind of curious about the overall scope.
So this is going to be an expensive project, but what I wanted to do here first was have the design cost estimates and have the figures. So a year from now, 2 years from now, when we do have some money or we get another grant, we can go ahead and pull the trigger and bring JMT in. They've already figured out everything we need, and then we can go ahead and just get them to move forward. And the Hyatt, the owners of the Hyatt, Harvey Hanna, I'm going to expect them, I'm going to ask them that they contribute a sum of money for this project also. That beach is a big draw for them on the Bayside, for their people, not only that have bought their condos, but also for the people that stay in the hotel. Removal of those 2 pipes is going to be a huge benefit for them, and not only for the town, for the water removal, but also as safety, and make that beach look a lot nicer than it is right now. Right now, Scott has put up 3 posts with a big sign that says danger, submerged objects or whatever it is. That's right in the middle of that beach. We want to get rid of that and keep those pipes clear, so.
When you showed the pictures just a minute ago of, I guess, Van Dyke flooded like that, are we having the same issue that you have on Reed, where you're getting the backflow that's just coming up through the storm drains and that's flooding it? Or
No, what's happening
rainwater?
here is that sand is completely in front of both pipes, and it rains,
So it's rainwater.
and it's rainwater that sits there, and until the tide goes out, the Hyatt has a guy with a shovel go down there and dig each one out, and the amount of force of the water coming out is unbelievable. It really is.
But they don't get, when they're clean though, they don't get backflow, huh? Up through the storm drains and everything. Interesting.
They might get a little bit. When we were doing the survey work, we did notice that some of the inlets had standing water in them, not up to grade, but when we popped them, they got the inverts for the pipe and the delineation. There was maybe 6, 8, 10 inches of upstanding water in there, and one was even up to the top of the pipe.
Because I've seen other projects where they take those 2 pipes, they put a culvert on the end of those 2 pipes that doesn't allow anything to come in the pipes, only allows water to exit, rises to a certain level, has a grate that catches trash, water tips over the top and goes back out. But it has to have enough back pressure to push the water up through that culvert. And, but I don't think we get enough water pressure to push it out.
And one of the constraints we looked at too was not reinstalling piping. If you look back at the drainage area, there's pipe everywhere. So we have to stick with the slopes and the depths that we have, and things are very shallow there to try to get it out into the back. I think I have one or two more slides just on the concept plan that we're working through, and then set an October timeframe, we'll be back with the full concept plan, details, and a cost estimate as well, and then also funding strategy on what's out there and what's available to fund some of the projects. So just stand up here. So large picture, again, we went through the area. We're going to be focused down at the end of the parking lot. There's actually a blow up on the next slide that might be a little bit more clear. Yeah. Currently, there's a buried junction box right there where that I guess I'll call that yellowish box is right now, and then that takes the flow all the way out into the bay. So we'll put in a new box there. At least we'll estimate that we'll put a new box in. As far as construction costs go, we'd like to be a little more conservative on what things will be, and then we can reuse what's there. Great. But for now, because we have to raise it, we're going to assume we're going to need a new storm box and drainage manhole, new 48-inch pipe. The pump station is going to be located either where it's at right now, or just, I'll say, generally in that area, and we're going to look at zoning lines and setbacks for that building to try to get it even further closer to have less of an obstruction in view. It'll stick out anywhere from 1 foot above grade, and then the pumps will be on top of that another 2-3 feet. So it's not going to be a big towering structure, but it's not going to be a completely, level view from that area.
So when I look at Baird, how tall would you say that is? Like 15 feet above the ground, 10 feet above the ground?
It's at least 12 when you count the berm and then the fence that goes around it. It's a 6-foot fence at least.
So how is this able to be so much more closer to the grade?
So here, we have all that beach in front of it. And again, the flooding doesn't come from the bay, so we don't have to build a berm here.
Okay.
So we can keep most of the stuff down at grade. But there is gonna be some stuff that's maybe 4 feet above ground.
Okay.
Like a transformer that you might see in an electric box, that's
So much less imposing on the street,
Yeah.
basically what I want to understand.
And then from there, we'll have a 24-inch force main discharge, run it down along the seawall. And the red arrows are a diffuser system that we've used before and is used, so instead of it forcefully rushing out into the bay, creating scour, we have a larger pipe, lower velocities, and then we let the flow diffuse out through those openings.
Yeah, so the pipe's long and it has all these holes in it, so as it goes out, it just doesn't hit the end of the pipe and just rush out. As it goes out, the water slowly goes through the pipe into the bay.
Do those holes get clogged?
They're gonna have to have maintenance done.
They will have
They will.
maintenance,
How often?
Depends on the algae and just the marine growth. I don't have a good answer for you on that right now.
Are we saying once a year, 5 times
No,
a year, once a month?
It'll be every few years. No.
I assume it looks pretty long, it will need specialized equipment to be able to clean it out.
Typically, it's divers. It's only 4 or 5 feet deep, and it's just scrubbing things off and then turning on the station and keeping it blow out. There also are blowout, getting really into the weeds, but there'll be blowout ports on the final pipe that's just not shown here right now, so you can cap the individual diffusers and then force water out through 1 or 2 at a time just to keep things cleaned.
Yeah, I would think you get a lot of barnacles, barnacles.
And I think there might be one more, it might help with your question on visualization. Another reason why you won't see a lot of the station is this is the influent pipe coming in. This is a profile going through it. We're going to drop it down deep into the pump station and then pump out. And then here's the diffusers at the 12 o'clock and it's 3 o'clock position if you're looking downstream. I've been by the other pump station once, and I think I remember that in that area there was a big berm. There were some openings to let the water in, and that's why it had to be so tall. But here, because we're just piping everything in, we can lower it during construction and then keep that 4-foot view. 4 feet below is what might be obstructed, and we'll add the pumps as part of the final plan. That's all I had. Anyone has questions, comments?
So again, this would be a project that we're gonna have to look for funding for it.
Yeah.
We're not gonna pull the trigger on it anytime soon, even though I'd like to. We have to wait and see how much on the Reed Street project we're gonna need of that 25% as we progress. If the Army Corps for some reason works faster than I imagine, we're gonna have to come up with more money faster than that. I don't believe that's gonna happen. And I told you anywhere between $120,000 and $130,000 a year coming into the infrastructure project from 20% of building permits. That could go up or could go down. So this project's an important project, but I gotta find funding for the actual installation. And we think it's gonna be well over $600,000. Well over that. So I got, whether it's DENREC, whether it's Harvey Hanna, whether it's going back to one of our representatives and asking them for funding for this, we're gonna have to get some funding for it.
How long are these studies good for?
That's a good question. 4 or 5 years at least. The limiting factor too is the pipe. So we have a drainage network that's already established, inlets that are already established, and that all goes to one point. So no more water can come through than the cross-sectional area, and we have a slope calculated. So we know what the maximum that can come in, then it's just a matter of how often do your pumps run. And that's something we'll talk with Bill Moore and everyone else here. Do you want to design for a 50-year storm? It's very conservative, and there might be a lot of other major issues and things going on that would probably be worse than what's going on here. So we'll look at a lower interval, probably the 1 to 2 year storm interval that makes sure all your nuisance storms are taken care of, and then within a reasonable time frame, 4, 5, 6 hours, everything else is pumped out in your larger 5, 10 year storms.
So it's just like Reed, talking about a temporary fix for right now. So there is no temporary fix to put something on the end of those two pipes going out to keep the sand from accumulating in front of them. But just so drainage.
So right now, the agreement the town has with Denrec and Harvey Hanna is responsible for all maintenance on those two pipes.
Uh-huh.
And I've asked them to do something different with them, and they haven't.
Got it.
They said they're gonna continue with the guy with a shovel,
Alright.
to just clean them out when they're covered with sand. And they asked
And
to
have
put
they
more,
kept that, have they kept that
they
promise?
do that,
Okay,
but they've asked to put more sand on the beach, to make the beach bigger, and the town has objected to that and wrote letters to Denrec, and they have not let them put any more sand on the beach. Because to me, more sand goes on the beach, it just covers up the pipes.
so under this scenario proposal, would they be able to put more sand on the beach and not impact?
I don't know, I think we have to work together, and we'll see how much they're willing to work with the town on this, especially when it comes to funding. Because it's to their benefit.
But I guess with the practical side of it is what I'm asking. If this project goes forward, would they be able to put more sand on their beach without the impact?
I guess it wouldn't
Of having to
impact,
shovel it or,
it wouldn't impact the pipe, because the pipe's gonna run 50 feet out
out.
into the water alongside the bulkhead for the marina,
okay.
right? So, I don't know how much sand the town would want them to fill in, because we don't want them to continue to build out, but
Yeah.
I think it'd be reasonable if they decide to work with the town, that we would be reasonable in the amount of sand going on the beach.
Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Chris, appreciate it.
Anybody have any, comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about divers having to go down and clean out these things, clean out pipes and things like that. Do we have certified divers who do that? Do you have to hire certified divers? Do we have to worry about liability if Scott goes down as a diver to do that?
I don't know, and maybe I didn't catch it, but I didn't hear anybody say about divers cleaning out
Oh,
the
he just
pipes.
talked about it.
I think that was, but I thought I heard him say the bay's only 4 to 5 feet deep where the pipe's gonna run out, so I don't know
So
why.
I guess when you use the word diver, I'm thinking, wetsuit, mask, the
Right.
whole
We're-
thing
we're
to go
not gonna-
down. Okay,
No, that's not gonna happen.
okay.
We had talked, Commissioner Jazinski had brought that up at one point, probably 2 years ago, about Reed Street,
Okay,
about having maybe divers look at the end of the flaps that they put in to see if they're actually sealing or not. I
Yeah.
thought you had brought that up.
We talked about that.
But that was the only time we've ever talked about, like, the town hiring some divers, I think.
We just get a paddy card for our mates.
it was a curious question more than anything else.
One other thing, and I almost forgot it. So the county has been Sussex County has been very helpful on this project on Van Dyke Street, to the point where they're going to try to put some money into their budget that would go directly to this project. I don't know how much money, but they're going to try to put some money. It might be $10,000 or so.
Why is that? Just curious, why?
Well, they're concerned about the bay, just like we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. Alright, anybody want to make a motion for adjournment?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Alright, thank you.
All in
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, everybody, for
Got a
the
lot of work done
support.
today.
Appreciate it.